Welcome back to the deep dive. So if you're joining us now, you've already secured really the most important title in this entire financial independence journey.
Asset owner.
Exactly. Asset owner. You have done the work, you've established your first income engine, and you have cash flow. Real cash flow coming in that doesn't demand your time.
And we can't overstate that. That is a colossal achievement, that shift in identity and just the proof of concept that income from ownership is. Well, it's real. It's the foundation for everything that comes next.
Absolutely. And this entire strategic path we're laying out today, it's based on the three-stage strategy for building financial independence. It was originated by the systems engineer, Tamir Khaham. We're really just leveraging his roadmap, which, it prioritizes structure and discipline above all else.
Right. And it's probably good to quickly recap where you are in that roadmap. You've mastered stage 1, which is all about building consciousness.
The
mindset, yes. And you've navigated the massive groundwork of stage 2. That's resilience. So your budgeting, emergency fund, debt management, automation, all that risk management is locked down solid.
And as you just said, you completed the first essential action of stage 3, establishing that first income-generating asset. That's what the strategy calls step 10. Whether it was acquiring a rental property, like Tamir Khaham did early in his own journey, or maybe setting up a large, profitable digital asset stream, you, the asset owner, have achieved liftoff.
You've made the leap. You've transitioned from the reliability of a salary, which is time for money, to the power of capital generating its own income.
So why are we here today? Why are we focusing specifically on step 12?
Because the sources are crystal clear on this. The journey doesn't just stop with one successful asset.
Right. So our mission in this deep dive is to really understand the necessary structural upgrade that's required to move gradually, but very deliberately, from work that is required to work that is chosen.
We're looking at how you eliminate that single point of failure.
Okay, so let's start there. And let's really acknowledge the weight of establishing that first asset. It is proof. It's proof that this whole philosophy actually works.
It's everything.
It creates that first stream of passive cash flow. It's what allows you to call yourself an asset owner without any qualification. You've done it.
And that's why it's such a dangerous moment. It's the highest point of confidence, but it could also be the highest point of risk.
How so?
Because that confidence can so easily breed complacency. Strategically speaking, this is the time for a cold, systems-level evaluation, not, a long celebration.
I get the strategic imperative, I do. But I imagine a lot of listeners are thinking, wait a second, I just spent maybe 2 years building this perfect rental property or this specialized digital platform. It's working. It covers a good portion of my expenses. Why isn't that enough? Why pivot immediately to more complexity?
And that's the critical question, isn't it? If we define financial independence as the condition where cash flow consistently and reliably covers all living expenses, then a single asset, no matter how strong it seems, inherently fails that test of reliability.
So just one isn't reliable.
Think of it this way. It's the difference between having one emergency candle in a drawer versus installing a permanent backup generator for your whole house.
So reliance on a single stream creates an Achilles heel. It doesn't matter how profitable that stream is right now.
Absolutely. The goal of FI, it isn't just about covering the bills for this month or even this year. It's about creating a system that's robust enough to survive decades of market shifts, regulatory changes, unexpected crises.
And if that one asset fails,
the asset owner has to go right back to the time for money trade. They're forced back into the exact dependency they just fought so hard to escape.
This is where we have to deliver the core theme. And I want to say this exactly as it's presented in the strategy documents.
Please do.
One income-generating asset is a great start, but it's not true freedom yet. Financial freedom means your money doesn't depend on a single source.
And that line, it's not a motivational quote. It's an engineering specification. You've built a viable product, sure, but it has zero redundancy. If you're building a rocket ship to freedom, you need backup engines. It's that simple.
So the next stage of the journey, step 12, is purely about analyzing and eliminating that structural risk.
Exactly. And since the creator of this strategy is a systems engineer, we have to apply systems thinking here. When you rely on a single asset, your entire financial security is tied to a single localized variable. This introduces what's called unmitigated concentration risk.
Okay, let's break that down. What does concentration risk actually look like in practice for an asset owner? Maybe give us a couple of different examples.
Sure. Let's use the two common asset classes we mentioned. So if your single asset is a rental property, all your risk is tied to that one specific location.
The neighborhood, the city.
The city, the state. A single event. A city passing some severe new tenant protection laws, a localized natural disaster, or even just a sharp downturn in that specific neighborhood's job market. Any of those things can render that asset non-performing, maybe indefinitely. You're trapped by geography and local regulation.
Okay, and what if the asset owner went the other way? What if they chose a digital asset stream instead?
It carries similar but different risks. So let's say they built a really strong income stream from ad revenue on a massive niche blog.
Okay.
Well, their entire financial fate is tied to the policies of maybe one or two advertising platforms, one search engine's algorithm, and the stability of their web host. An update by some tech giant could wipe out 50% of their traffic overnight. That dependency is absolute.
And it requires constant active management to stay ahead of it,
Yeah.
which kind of defeats the purpose of passive cash flow.
It completely contradicts the goal.
I see the vulnerability, but let me challenge this a bit.
Yeah.
Because I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up. If I have one big successful asset, I can focus all my time and energy on making it perfect.
There's the argument, yes.
But if I expand to 3 or 4 smaller assets, doesn't that just increase my workload, my complexity? Doesn't that risk dragging me further back toward trading my time for money?
That's a brilliant question. It really is, because it forces us to clarify the core philosophy here. Resilience before growth.
Okay.
The structural upgrade of Step 12 is not about dramatically increasing your gross cash flow, not at first. It's about increasing your system robustness. You are consciously trading some management complexity for long-term financial stability.
So the stability is the real currency here, not just the monthly income.
Precisely. The asset owner's core job is risk management. It's not return chasing. If you're chasing high returns early on by hyper-focusing on one thing, you often introduce risk through leverage or speculation, which just makes the whole system more fragile.
So Step 12 demands you diversify by adding assets that are, different?
They have to be independent of your first asset's risk profile. You're not just piling on more of the same kind of risk. You might choose a digital asset if your first was real estate, or vice versa, specifically to break that risk correlation. It's mandatory system fortification.
The expansion, then, it's not driven by an urge to get rich faster.
No.
It's a mandatory structural requirement to solidify your independence.
It is the only way to transition the system from a state of fragility to one of true resilience. It has to be engineered to withstand shocks.
Which brings us right to Step 12, which the sources define as the expansion and replication of non-time dependent income sources. This sounds like it requires a very thoughtful strategy, not just, throwing capital around.
Oh, absolutely. We're building multiple independent cash flow engines. The approach should be slow, methodical. You're aiming to spread out your risk factors, not just maximize your immediate rate of return. We're building multiple pillars under the financial roof. If one of those pillars suddenly needs a major repair, the rest of the structure holds steady.
You mentioned it functions as both a protective strategy and an empowering one.
Yeah.
How does that work? Because those sound like two different goals.
They're inherently linked in this model. Let's start with the protective side, which is simple redundancy. Imagine an economic downturn that's focused heavily on one sector, say the rental market in major cities.
Yep.
If all your assets are in that one space, your cash flow just evaporates. But if you have diversified assets, maybe a profitable licensing agreement for some intellectual property or a rental property in a completely different geographical market or a profitable subscription service, those other independent streams keep producing.
So the system as a whole absorbs the shock. The asset owner doesn't have to panic sell assets at a loss or, even worse, go back to looking for a job.
Exactly. The diverse sources create a shock absorber. This gives the asset owner the ability to maintain their expenses and just wait out the volatility in that one affected asset class. That's a massive strategic advantage.
Okay, that's the protection part. Now, let's talk about empowerment. How does that increased stability translate into decision-making freedom?
Well, when you're reliant on one single thing, say a specific tenant paying rent on the first of the month, you are highly reactive. You're making stress decisions about maintenance, about capital deployment.
Your mood for the month depends on one bank transfer.
That's a great way to put it. However, once you have, say, 4 independent cash flow streams and one of them is temporarily non-performing, you stop worrying about that micro fluctuation.
You gain distance from the day-to-day anxiety.
Precisely. You become a non-reactive investor. You can now deploy capital deliberately, looking years ahead. You can choose to sell off parts of your portfolio for philanthropic reasons or to fund a child's education, as Tamir Khaham did later in his journey, because the core structural cash flow isn't dependent on any one of those specific parts. The reliance is broken. You control the capital no longer controls you.
That completely reframes the definition of choice. It's not just about spending money. It's about having the structural stability to make choices that are driven by meaning, not by necessity.
That is the ultimate payoff of Step 12. It's the true finish line for financial independence. When that diversified cash flow consistently and completely covers all of your living expenses, the asset owner has achieved true financial choice.
Any work you perform after that point, consulting, passion projects, even taking a job, is done purely for engagement or personal mission or just enjoyment.
The dependency link has been severed by structural resilience.
You're working because you want to, not because you have to.
And this structural fortification ensures that choice is permanent, barring some kind of global collapse.
At this point, it's important to pause and clarify something essential. This episode is not about financial techniques and not about optimization or investing. I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. What we are doing here is building strategic thinking structure before scale. And it's important to say this clearly. Just because this approach worked for the creator of this strategy does not mean it will work for you. There are no guarantees. This is a thinking framework. Responsibility for decisions and outcomes always remains with the listener.
So let's just reinforce the central lesson of Step 12 here. Diversification isn't just a tool for maximizing profit. It is a profound strategy for strengthening freedom and reducing your vulnerability. If the foundation of financial independence is security, then that security demands multiple, truly independent income streams. It reflects that critical wisdom of prioritizing resilience before growth.
You, the listener, you secured the asset owner identity with that first engine. Step 12 is about actively managing and expanding those capital structures to ensure you have true independence from the time-for-money trade. You're now thinking like Tamir Khaham, the systems engineer, building redundancy into the economic architecture of your life.
And the remaining steps in Stage 3 will naturally address what comes next. Systematizing the management of these multiple assets, scaling that growth efficiently, and developing a long-term wealth architecture that ensures generational stability.
And as we step away from the specifics of Step 12, let's consider the parallel commitment that's required, the commitment to continuous learning. The strategy creator, Tamir Khaham, he didn't stop his education when he achieved FI. He started learning about digital assets even in his late 60s to make sure his structure remained robust against changing markets.
The financial structure is only as strong as the learning that sustains it.
So we'll leave you with this provocative closing thought. What field related to your assets or your future assets do you need to commit to learning right now to guarantee the future resilience of your portfolio?
Find that area of knowledge you are actively neglecting. Make that continuous commitment to self-education, because that is the ultimate form of strategic risk management.
Join us next time as we continue exploring the golden path to true economic freedom.